Hey, welcome to the Doc Analyzes Anything, the show where science and psychology meet. We analyze human behavior, any behavior, including explaining the plot, but then whispering the twist.
Have you guys ever done
Mm, To a fault. I get really excited, and people will be like, I haven't seen it. I'm like, yeah, well, I won't ruin it, but here's me ruining it.
I try
You're
not to
horrible.
ruin things, but by the time I haven't seen any new movies in so long that I just assume anything that I'm talking about is probably if you haven't seen it by now, I'm not really ruining anything. And so
Yeah, when you're referencing like a movie from like 85, that's a little different than, or even like
some of us weren't born in '85, Kyle.
doesn't mean I retained any information from what I
He
saw
was
when I was.
he was born like 5 days before 1986 started, and I get to call him out because I was born 2 months later.
I enjoyed having the being the 85th. I feel, is that the start of millennial or the end of millennials
Like the very beginning.
or the beginning? I mean, is it the beginning
I
85?
I don't know if they've actually defined it. It's basically anybody that was in that late elementary through early college or into college age during the millennium, like the year
Okay,
2000. So
okay.
we're kind of right dead in the middle of that, even though at the time we were a little bit older, thinking all those damn millennials. When these people start calling everybody millennials, not realizing that was us, we thought it was the younger kids
That was
until
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we found out nope, it's
We've kind of
actually we're
talked about it before, but it's funny that you just said that. It's like, oh, damn millennials or damn insert generation, whatever here. Just like we're so hateful of the quote unquote generations below or after us. Like
Yeah.
we're always looking for a reason to hate the change of the world and people. And I know we've
the,
talked about it before, but I still just find it so comical.
it
Proves
is
that we're stuck
ridiculous.
in our ways.
It is ridiculous because every generation does it, and there's no clear defined generation. This is all arbitrarily made up BS. That then we're like, aha, my arbitrary timeline's better than your arbitrary timeline,
Mhm.
loser.
Well,
Like,
now if we
no.
even go back to like what was like the primitive people, so the cave people, the one generation of cave people to the next. Like imagine how hateful the older cave people were, like that were right before the creation of the wheel. They see this stone wheel come about and they're grunting and just hateful, like, what is
Kids
this?
these days
Wait,
don't
these
Yeah,
know.
damn lazy kids using their wheel.
yeah. We used to
Back in
pick
my
things
day, our
up.
wheels were square,
Yeah,
uphill both ways.
yep.
Uh,
Yeah, there you go. It's the we used to walk uphill both ways to school.
Now, I also love that this is where we've gone off of just talking about giving away the plot line of a movie. And so
Well, there's no clear direct line in this world because I was actually going to bring up talking about spoiling plots, but in a different way, about how sad is it when when you finally get around to watching something. So for me, it was recently Stranger Things, but you know the giant plot twist that changes your thoughts on something when you already know that it happens.
yeah, that is annoying to an extent, but I will also say I tend to forget. And so they put out the list of all right, which episodes to you watch to refresh yourself
Mm-hmm.
before watching the end of that show.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even remember who the main bad guy was. It
Really?
had been that long, and
Well, yeah.
this is all brand new to me again. This is
But
cool.
yeah, it was like 10 years in the
So
making.
Yeah. Well, are
That's
you a
fair.
Stranger Things guy, Kyle?
I watch it with my kids. They like it. Or
Really?
my oldest does at least.
How old is
Yeah,
your oldest?
13. Yeah, he's into it. Uh,
Really? Well, it's crazy then because sorry to interrupt, but how that show has now been out like a decade. So it started when they were like 3.
well, he didn't watch it when he was 3. He binged it over Christmas break, and then we watched the 5th season together.
what are
Yeah.
you neglecting your kids, not letting them watch Stranger Things when they're 3? What's wrong with you?
uh, it is. I don't know if I'm just like desensitized, but my wife will watch that and be like, "Oh, that's horrifying," and I'm like, "I don't. That wasn't. It wasn't that gross or scary, but maybe I'm just like numb to the world at this point. I just thought
Yeah.
it was a fun, good show. I didn't need to think too hard about it, but
Yeah, I how about because you were a D&D guy, did that lead you to think about it a little bit more from those of us who like don't have any perspective for
Oh,
that? I'm just like, cool storyline.
you are a D&D guy?
I'm tempted to plug our podcast, but I'm not going to because it's
You
not out
you
yet.
can
What?
I was gonna say you could talk about it, but if everybody hates us, it's probably gonna do you like yeah, misjustice. I don't
um,
know.
I am a D&D guy. And we are oh, as far as Stranger Things goes, yeah, there's some tie-in. It's cool seeing that. I never played as a kid, so it's cool seeing kind of like kids play like the way it's supposed to be played, where you're just having a blast. I play with friends, but I jump in on other games sometimes, and it's like, okay, I don't take it this seriously. But I'm not the guy that's gonna be like, the rule says this, or you know what I mean. Like I'm not gonna be that guy. I'm just the guy that likes to play and then like make dick jokes sometimes, and that's the fun of it. So
Is it really that it can take hours to do a whole like campaign?
It could take years. There's
I've been
one
playing
that
the same. I've been playing one campaign for like 2 years right now.
I
Holy
read
cow.
there's an
Yeah.
active campaign that's been going on since the mid 80s.
Hmm.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my
And
gosh.
now I am the type that needs a clear ending. Like if I'm reading a book, even if I can't stand it, I have to get through it as quickly as possible just to be say I finished it. I can't quit in the middle. And so that would
Mm.
actually drive me nuts that this thing doesn't mean like, all right, 6 months from now I'm gonna be done with this. I can start something new.
I mean, we keep like we'll beat like the big bad, or like we'll solve the problem, and then like we show up next week, and then it's like 2 years has gone by, and you're all just friends sitting around. Suddenly you get a message, and then it just like starts up again, or like we take a day and just like go shopping in the local market and like buy up new supplies and stuff with all of our gold we got for completing
Yeah,
the mission. I don't know. I'm gonna get nerdy
it
really
is
quick, but
it is very clear that I do not have the imagination for this sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what
But
I'm thinking of is I don't know if I have the imagination slash the patience.
no.
it's
All
it's
right.
pretty fun. Think of it as like a video game of the mind, and it'll change your outlook on it.
Yeah, the
Because
nice thing
back,
about video
sorry,
games The nice thing about video games is that I don't have to write them. They just come to me and I can
Yeah.
play
well, you don't
them.
you don't need to write it as a player. As a player, you don't need
Okay.
to write it. Yeah, you need somebody
There's a
willing to do it.
storyteller though, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's one guy that's got, or one person I should say, that has it all kind of figured out. But I like to throw curveballs too. So like I don't want to do that mission. I'm gonna go downstairs and strike up a conversation with a local barkeep and see what he knows, and then suddenly I'm on my own. I get separated from my party a lot. So
Does does the dungeon master have to on the fly create a new story for you?
I mean that's the fun. That's the fun of it. There's different ways to do it. I feel like it's turning into the D&D podcast. You
Well,
can
you're gonna
roll
cut
for
out a
like,
lot of this so people aren't
yeah,
bored. So now I
you
just
can
want to
roll
know.
for like random events. You're like, oh man, he says that, and then DM rolls, and it's like a goblin is, to get a random mission. Or you can make it up on the fly if you've got a good DM. That's always fun.
So what are we
So
talking
yeah,
about today? What are you
cut out a
teaching me
bunch of
about?
that shit. Uh
I'm paying thousands of dollars for this class that I'm only taking to get credit to fill my curriculum. What topic are we talking about today?
well, should probably introduce ourselves just in case first, but today is the doc takes on Maslow and his hierarchy. Although I
Right
don't
on.
necessarily disagree with it fully, that's the topic today. But hello everyone, I am Dr. Steven Sparks. With me as always, Mr. Kyle Sturry, and with us much of the time, Dr. Meow 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 Meow, because now he's changed his name on the video, so I don't even remember who he is in real life. Ah, that's Bradley Clements, by the way. And yeah, as I said,
Hey, for the
so
record, his Dr. Sparks kids don't even call me Uncle Meow Meow anymore. The one just looks at me and goes, "Hey Meow Meow." That man. Continue on though.
what do they start
Perfect.
calling you lately? It's
Uncle Georgie.
Uncle Georgie, and I have no idea where they came from or why.
Yeah. I don't know.
Georgie.
I
Yep,
don't ask
Uncle
questions.
Georgie.
I'm just there.
Yeah. So yeah, today we're gonna talk about Maslow. How you all feeling today on your personal hierarchies? How's everything going?
Well, I had a
Man,
question.
can I? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, and cause I know this is going to be part of the whole process of explaining it, but I feel like I'm at like I'm at a stage of it, but if it is like a true hierarchy where you have to get like through like level 1 to get to 2, 2 to get to 3, at my point I'm at like level 3, but I can't get to the next one because I'm just kind of here.
Are we talking about your sad love life, or are we just
Yeah.
talking about okay?
And so, well, the funniest part is, and to not jump the gun too much, step 4 is self-esteem. And it's like, well, damn it, that explains it all.
Man, I was gonna see if I could try and nail it,
go go
because
ahead.
I didn't prepare for this session like I normally do. Is it safety? Is that the bottom?
Yeah, physiological needs, those basic needs.
Okay,
Physiological's on the
before
bottom.
we,
Is
yeah,
safety one of
No,
them?
safety is second. Yeah.
So it's physiological, then safety? I was gonna say
before
self-esteem third. Oh, go ahead.
Nope.
I
What?
should say,
What?
before we talk too much, because even I was kind of jumping the gun on it, should we discuss what each stage is first?
How about you just calm down and let me go through the thing here, because
That's what I'm trying to
Kyle's getting
do.
the right stage, it's just not in the right order.
Okay.
And I
And
see
It's been a minute.
confusion
I'm
transpire
trying
among.
I'm trying to give a little bit of some background here, mostly because it's nostalgic for me. His good friend Ricky, we'll call him Rick the Younger. I actually like that, so we'll do Rick the Younger and then Rick the Elder. It's like a Pliny the Elder or Pliny the Elder twist there.
Yeah, yeah.
Not only the men in history, but also some great West Coast IPAs for anybody that's interested.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Um, so Rick the Younger and I are good friends for many years. Throughout school, whenever I'd come back into town, usually he and I were shutting down the bar when everybody else had given up on us hours ago, and we'd go back to his parents' house within walking distance and hang out. His dad was usually still up, and he'd join us for some beer. And every time I'd try to be explaining to him like what I'm studying, what I'm doing, behavioral science, obviously inebriated to the point where I probably shouldn't really be trying to have these conversations with him. He's a real intelligent guy, and he'd always bring up Maslow and how he didn't agree with what I was studying. He thought Maslow made more sense. And so, fortunately, Rick the Elder passed away several years ago, and I never got the chance to really be able to nail this down. Again, I was a little bit earlier on in school and never in a good brain state to be able to explain to him why he was wrong. But I think he'd enjoy me calling out and saying he's wrong, even though, as we'll discuss, I don't know that he was actually wrong as much as I don't like the way that this theory is put out there as if it is a scientific fact rather than just a kind of world
Right.
observation. You know what I mean? Like it is not a
Yeah.
thing that exists. It's a bit of a reification to talk about it as this hierarchy that exists rather than talking about an observation of how people tend to choose their reinforcers in the moment based on where they are in life and in the world. And so,
That's a good I like the way you put that. It's a it's a way of it's a construct. It's a way of explaining something.
yeah. Now, the world tends to
Yeah.
talk about it in terms of it being like a verifiable law of psychology. You know, I mean, is this thing that exists
Right.
in human behavior? We should study how it works with human behavior. And it's not that. It is very much just, a description of something that was observed, and then Maslow kind of putting it into this hierarchy based on his prior understanding and calling it a thing rather than just say, hey, this is kind of out there, like a tautology, something that exists in nature that is to be looked into because it's interesting, but not necessarily something that guides or controls behavior, really.
Right. Right.
So we'll give a little bit of background on Maslow just to really let people know who he was. He studied experimental behavior and, or I guess it wasn't behavior analysis back then. He was a experimental behaviorist in his research in school. And this is back in the 1920s, 1930s. And so I believe more of the 20s. He was born in the very early 1900s. And so this was back in the time, probably more in like the Watson's behaviorism, the methodological
Mhm.
behaviorism, rather than Skinner, since Skinner hadn't really published or done. He was kind of a contemporary doing things around the same time as Maslow. And Maslow is what most considered or would describe as a positivist. And so the idea is that all knowledge is true by definition or is positive in that the facts are derived by reason or logic accessed through sensory experience. And so to explain that a little more clearly, the difference between methodological behaviorism and radical behaviorism is that Watson kind of believed in the same phenomenon, but would talk about it in terms of only that behavior that was observable. So whatever goes inside the head, we can't see it. We're going to ignore it. We're not going to even treat it like it's the same thing as we see physiologically speaking. Watson was a contemporary around the same time as like the Pavlov's dog, and so he would have been studying or at least interested in that type of research at the same time and talk about what we can see physiologically occurring and how that affects behavior. Where Skinner was like, we have these laws, and he determined a lot of the laws through his experimental research of operant conditioning. And now we can, based on the products of how our experimentation works and how we control the environment, as well as how we see other observable behavior be affected by these changes to the environment, assume that this private event, the thing that's occurring inside our head, is affected the same way as the observable behavior. And so, really, all that is to say that Maslow's really kind of part of the reason I think the hierarchy is written the way it is because he was very much a, hey, this is what I can see and observe with my senses. We're not going to go any deeper into that. We're not going to get into the idea, or we're not going to argue with the Freudians of the time and this idea of the mind or the id, the ego, these different parts, which I've mentioned before. Freud just kind of made up while he was coked out of his mind having fun back in the 1800s. And we're just going to kind of look at these things that we can observe and go off these observations. And so there's that dividing line right now, kind of in the sand between his views and our radical behaviorist views. And for those who don't remember, radical behavior analysis is the idea that all psychological phenomenon, regardless of if it's internalized part of the body, what have you, is behavioral in nature. It is part of the same science. It's explained by the same behavior analytic laws compared to, again, the methodological, which is just what's observable.
Right. No
All right.
private events in methodological.
Right. So, Dr. Miano, did I explain that in a way that is hopefully accessible to the general public? Any questions on that?
I followed it for the most part. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it is very complex, and so if people want to get down to a T, they might have to listen to it once or twice. But I can't think of any obvious point that it could be simplified further.
Yeah. It's in general, you don't have to know this. It's just kind of an opportunity to kind of teach people about our science. But basically, the old school behaviorists, hey, what I see is what I get. And we're like, no, the thoughts, the mind, the brain, that's all behavior. It's all verbal behavior to us, and so it's part of our analysis as well. Um, so he was studying this, doing, I think it was primate, not superiority. What's the dominance and sexuality is what he was studying as a student. And then he started working with a colleague of Freud's afterwards, and started working and kind of, you can see how he combined these repertoires. I think if we mentioned it before in the novel behavior episode, it's kind of the contingency induction. So he had the
Hmm.
behavioral contingencies that he had learned in that line of study, the early Freudian colleagues teaching them their stuff. He worked and was mentored by, I believe it was a anthropologist at one point. And so he had all these different influences, and that led him to developing what he termed humanistic psychology. And so it was from that combination of repertoires where he determined and designed his hierarchy of needs. So, what is the hierarchy of needs? It is a 5-tier model. And in theory, the subject cannot move from one tier to the next until they have acquired that previous level. Again, that's going to be part of the discussion and whether or not that makes sense to us. But level one is the physiological needs, so the most basic for survival, um, such as air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. And kind of remember that last one because that's something I found interesting is reproduction, because it is a almost animalist instinct, unlearned reinforcer. It falls on this level, and really unconditioned or unlearned reinforcers make up the most of this level. The things that you would find reinforcing had you never had the opportunity to learn anything. I probably should be another episode, but we've heard the story about the child that was lost in the woods or the jungle and comes back without verbal behavior later. Yet, these basic reinforcers are still reinforcers to them.
Mhm.
Think of that sort of situation. Level two is safety needs. So personal security, employment, resources, health, um, property, having that ownership of something that you can then kind of use to move yourself forward in society. Level three is love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection. Again, interesting because this is now a different than just procreation. This is the building of those relationships and fostering the relationships, not just trying to do our animal instinct willy nilly all over nature. Now you have to wonder is willy nilly selected for a reason there. I thought of that immediately, but regardless,
I didn't go there. I do now.
I saw a smirk. I wasn't sure. Level four is esteem. So respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. And then level five is self-actualization. And he was not the first one to talk about self-actualization. There's not a perfect definition or agreement across the board what that really means. To Maslow, what he was really discussing it is in terms of fulfilling your potential. So creative, cognitive, um, becoming the best version of yourself, finding meaning in life, being completely comfortable and happy, and nothing can really get to you. Um, so personal growth, self discovery. It's not quite the same, but I think it's almost helpful to think about in terms of like finding nirvana, and reaching this separate plane from the rest of humanity where you can be comfortable, happy. Now it's different because they would argue that you wouldn't want, the esteem to reach nirvana. That would actually be counterintuitive to reaching nirvana. You're supposed to give away your worldly possessions and just become one with nature and through meditation and that sort of thing. But I think if you think of it kind of in terms of reaching that plateau of this is the greatest level that this individual could reach, it's a separate plane from others, is what we're getting with that self-actualization. And he would say that, and I think everybody would say that no one either ever reaches that or few ever reach that level. And it's not necessarily something that's always obtainable, but it is kind of where you would go if you had an endless amount of time and could reach your full potential as a human.
Self-actualized.
Yeah. Another definition I saw, which I thought was interesting, was the desire to become more than one can be. So it's literally just that I'm going to keep striving to be the best me, even though I can never reach that, which
Does
almost
is
goes
that where
against.
almost God complex can come in?
I think there is very much a crossover there, and I think that a lot of the theme we'll talk about here is the fact that there's seems to be, although I don't think it was his intention, a level of classism here, a level of that idea of some people are more important than the others, and you see it with the extremely wealthy, where I've basically mastered business, maybe not really mastered business, but got to the point where I can't necessarily go any higher. Look at
Mhm.
the Elon Musk of the world. All of a sudden, the message changes from we're going to do things that's good for the earth to all of a sudden I'm more important than everybody else, and we're going to do these things because I say they're important and I know better than you all because I'm the world's richest man, sort of thing. This idea, it seems like they think they've reached a level of self-actualization when we say they reach a level that they're so removed from the rest of society that they don't realize how dumb they sound. But that could be up to debate as well. So either you reach self-actualization. I feel like I'm right there about to teeter off the edge of like thinking I know more than the rest of the world and sounding like a complete fool at any moment.
But then you get into
I
that one, the one thing that I've talked to you about a couple of times where you think you're the smartest person in the room, but and thinking so highly of yourself and like thinking everyone else is wrong, where you're actually the one that's wrong in comparison.
Yeah, I'd
yeah.
say it is fair that most people in academia and probably even outside of academia with a PhD or higher education often think they're the smartest person in the room. But I will always fall back on what is supposedly Socrates is teaching, but they don't know if Socrates actually existed or if he was just a figment of Plato's imagination. Um, but where the only true knowledge is to know you know nothing. Like even if you know more than everybody else you encounter ever, there's still so much knowledge out there that you don't have that you're likely to be wrong quite a bit of the time. And so you can never let yourself be on that pedestal. Otherwise, you're going to look like a fool.
So would you argue then that to be skeptical in most situations, or like where does like
Oh,
the idea of like self-doubt come into where you're being more self-aware than some others may be in that moment?
so that's one of the things you learn through school, through grad school, and probably why people who go through higher education are going to be more skeptical and not buy into. I don't want to say like it's not a educated versus uneducated. It is
hmm
an awareness versus unawareness of the fact that most of what you see and hear at some point will probably be disproven. Our technology will get better, our knowledge will get stronger, and a good chunk, if not most, of scientific knowledge at this point eventually will be disproven by better scientific knowledge just because we have the ability to learn more. And so, one of the first things I remember learning in grad school was that all science should be disprovable. That doesn't mean that it all will be disproved. It doesn't mean that there should be bad science out there that like, oh nope, it's all gonna be disproved one day. This isn't right. What it means is it needs to be conducted in a way that as people learn more from generation to generation, that it can be disproved and come up with better theories that actually fill in. And so we see that with gravity, even the laws of gravity don't work in time space, the way that they at least seem to here on Earth. And we develop these theories here on Earth, and that's why there's things like string theory, which you don't hear much about anymore. So I don't know if it's really something that's being followed too much, or dark matter, and these things that are explaining how celestial bodies are working because it's just not fitting the models that we're aware of, the things we understand. But to the average person, I'm not floating away. So obviously the laws of gravity exist. And so if you went in and said, no, gravity always exists, it's always the same, then you'd actually be sounding like a fool to someone who really knows what's going on. But it's also not hurting anybody because all you really care about is that you're not floating away off the surface of the earth at this point. You know what I mean? You should always be skeptical. You should never just believe anything face value. I don't like look at a news story and believe it, no matter how atrocious it is. I'm going to look up everybody's side of it and then try to come up to a conclusion knowing that everybody's biased in their own way rather than just believing something I hear ever. Um, but that's also a somewhat painful way to live life that you can never just trust anything you hear.
Yeah.
All
it's
right, so
easier to
Kyle,
believe what you want to hear.
you self-actualized. I know we went on a tangent there, but where you at?
Wasn't, but now that you said that, I am. So yeah. uh no, I mean it's defined in a way that's kind of like unattainable. Like be someone that you like can't be, essentially, is what it's saying. Or
it
be
it
be someone be who
so
you
that's
want to
how
be. I don't know.
that is how like generally it's talked about. Maslow was talking about more about reaching your highest level of potential. And so
Yeah.
if you have an innate ability for art, which again, I don't believe in innate abilities for any of these things because I mean, what is art? As a small child, I couldn't even draw a straight line and I still can barely draw a straight line, but no one just has the magical ability for art. It's a learned skill. But
Right.
in his philosophy, you have this innate ability to be good at art. your self-actualization would be just diving into that and putting your life into that to become the best artist that you could be, or the
Yeah.
best scientist you could be. And again, I have no problem with that. I kind of think if you're gonna do anything, you might as well try to be the best at it, knowing
Yeah.
that you probably will never be. There will always be someone better than you out there, but at least try. Um,
It
but
it does seem kind of it does seem kind of a little bit classist, I guess. Like, so you mentioned that, but there would be like it's kind of a privilege to reach self-actualization, I think, if you're talking about, compared to the masses. There's people in situations where self-actualization just, I mean, you have to stay at safety needs in order to get by. Um,
it, absolutely, there is a classist aspect to it, and I think some point we'll probably do a discussion on poverty, why it existed historically, why it exists now, and how, for the most part, like you can't say universally, but for the most part, people can't or shouldn't be blamed for their own situation. That there are things that negatively affect it, and I know that people are going to be up in arms already hearing about that because you think we're making a political argument, but it's because this has
yeah.
been politicized, not because it is a political argument, you know, at its base level.
Well, and I was gonna say too, just going back to that, could it also be like I attain self-actualization by making sure all my safety needs are met? Like if I keep food on the table and I'm, financially secure and my family's safe and that makes me happy, is
Well,
that
again, that part of the issue with the definition of this is, are you going to now say that some people's potential is lower than others? You know what I mean? There are a
yeah.
lot of people that truly believe that they should have things that others don't. And like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to put this like that I don't like having things that others don't, because it's cool to have some reinforcement that others don't have that you can show off, that sort of thing. But I
Yeah.
don't believe there's
Yeah.
anything special about me. We're all just primates that learned language. Yet there are people that think, hey, that might be your level of self-actualization because that is the brace you can achieve, but I'm better than you. There's something about me that makes me better,
Yeah.
and so my level of self-actualization is higher, and that's BS in general. And then
Yeah.
just the idea that any of us are special, rather than the fact that we're all unique. Everybody's different, but anybody being more special than anybody else is just bug. It doesn't make any sense. We are just animals, and the fact that we've developed this language to tell ourselves we're special is the only reason. You know, people think based on their family, their humble beginnings, or starting off with money, all these things, that they should and deserve more than others, and it's just BS.
Yeah. Well, and there's something about having like that. I'm looking at it here. Having esteem under self-actualization somehow implies if you don't reach status, if you don't reach recognition, uh, then you can't be the most that you can be. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like the esteem, I mean, self-esteem, obviously, like I can have self-esteem, but not feel like intimately like in a relationship with my friends and family, like I'd be like, they're fine and I feel great. And that's not me personally, but I'm saying that's probably some people's situation.
well, and it's all subjective too, because if you think about level of self-esteem in different situations, like what it is in the blue blood, the higher society people versus what we see and think of in an inner city. Like, you can have people in very different walks of life in very different situations who have both hit a level of notoriety and reached that level of the hierarchy depending on their social and I don't mean social standing in terms of monetarily, but their social group, their culture. They've
Yeah.
reached the high end of that, and so
Right. Right. Right.
it
Yeah.
maybe that gives some leeway in this discussion, as it means different things to different people, but it's not how it reads. It reads like, nope, I'm going to try to be this super wealthy industrialist, and now that's where I need to be at before I can get to this next level.
Sure. Hmm.
Um, but even then, I think there's holes in the idea of having to reach one level before getting to the next two, because there are plenty of unhomed people who have loving relationships. You know what I mean? You can't say
Right.
you don't have intimacy, you don't have family, you don't have these things. A lot of times with mental illness, with substance abuse, with all these different situations where you can't necessarily fulfill the first or second level because of a situation,
Yeah.
does not mean that you're not still reaching, what is it, level 3 or level 3, and maybe even
Right.
level 4. It even goes against the idea of the starving artist who never is appreciated or recognized until after their death. You know what I mean? Like, that is the cliche of being an artist, or at least seemingly. Yet if you are that great of an artist, would you not have reached self-actualization even if you're struggling to survive? And so it's not that I disagree with the idea in general, because obviously most people, we'd like to think, are taking care of feeding themselves and having a place to sleep and staying warm, um, before they reach the level of uh, going out and buying unnecessary things and acting as if these things give them respect and self-esteem, like much of our society does. But that's not necessarily how it works. And I said we hope. That's not right either, because I don't want it to make it sound like we don't think people without a lot of money shouldn't be able to buy some creature comforts as well. I mean, I know there is a lot of people out there that think, hey, you're struggling, why do you have a new iPhone? And that's not the case. First of all, how are you going to even, apply for a job or make it to work without, technology that we all rely on today? But it's more about the idea that we don't want you starving to death to have to try to afford or get that material good. That's all.
Respect.
Gotta be careful though. I don't want to sound like I'm saying, hey, quit buying nice stuff just because it's expensive. Like that sounds pretty shitty to say. Um, Another thought I had on this one, beyond the classist elitist feeling of it, is I wonder how much this sort of thinking, and maybe this hierarchy itself, has led to the idea that people don't deserve love or happiness because they don't feel like they're in a good place in life. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, I've had, we hear it all the time, both professionally and with like friends and family and stuff. Like, I'm still working on myself before I worry about, finding a relationship. And if you're never satisfied with your situation, then you may be working on yourself the rest of your life, and never think you deserve those reinforcers. And now, if it's not your thing, cool. Like, if you don't want close family relationships, you don't want to be in an intimate relationship, that sort of thing, then so be it. But it's almost seems like maybe because of this, or maybe because of other social factors, we've all been led to believe, like, I don't deserve this until I get to this point in the hierarchy. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have love and belonging until I have a nice home, instead of, this um, apartment that I have, or, until I have a good job, my career, rather than just working, a random pickup job here and there. And maybe it comes down to the fact that we are again talking reinforcers, and different levels of reinforcers, different um, motivating operations. All right, Dr. Meow Meow, you ready for tell us about motivating operations? Like, every month, I'm going to call you out till you get it right.
He
What
never
are
gets it.
motivating operations? Remember, they affect two things.
So motivating operations, if you're saying that they're going to affect that, there is an effect on two separate things. It's not like a before and after.
Correct. It is a change in the
Oh, before and
environment
after.
that.
A change in the environment that would so what's the word again? Motivating factor.
All right,
You
never mind.
can't even repeat
Motivating
it.
operations,
Okay.
a change in the environment that both increases the reinforcing value of an outcome and increases the amount of behavior that a person or an organism will exhibit to get that outcome.
Say
You'll
that
never
one more.
forget it again.
Hear it again.
So, reinforcer, anything that follows a behavior that increases the future frequency of the behavior.
Yep.
So, in a
Yep.
change in the environment that increases the reinforcing value of an outcome. So, not eating for 12 hours is going to increase the reinforcing value of food.
Mm-hmm.
And it increases the amount of behavior or amount of effort that organism will exhibit to get that reinforcer. So I'll do a lot more to get food when I haven't eaten for 12 hours than I will when I've just eaten a big meal,
Yeah.
and it will make that food more reinforcing. And so what we're
Glass of
talking
cold
about,
water. Glass of cold water is a reinforcer, but when you're in the desert and you're super hot, it's a lot more valuable.
yeah.
Okay.
And so what we're talking about is this hierarchy as in terms of motivating operations, you know, how much behavior and how reinforcing are these things based on where you are in life. Um, and so when we're talking about that and talking about it in terms of where I think I, you know, deserve to be, what type of life, what type of relationship I deserve to have, you'll often hear people say, like, I need to work on myself. I need to be happy with myself before I can be happy with someone else. And it's not necessarily true. There's nothing wrong theoretically with relying somebody else to be your primary reinforcer because you're not finding yourself reinforcing. You don't make yourself happy. That being said, is a very dangerous situation because if you have very small amount of reinforcers available to you, it might be very powerful, but there's not a variety of them, and that one is lost, then you're absolutely screwed. Like this is where we see people dive into deep depression. They don't think life is worth living, that sort of thing. Say you have a elderly couple been together 50 years, and then one of them passes away. Obviously, depression is going to occur regardless. But the spouse that is out there involved with clubs, involved with friends, seeing family often, they have hobbies, they have a lot going on in their lives, it will hit them much less than the person
Mm.
who just spent all their time doting on that significant other. And so if you find someone that makes you that happy, even if you're not happy with yourself, and they're okay with being that source of reinforcement, and they're not finding you overbearing or clingy, and like it works as a couple, that's just fine. But if you're going to rely on that and not find other forms of reinforcement first, and then they decide they don't want it anymore or something happens to them, it's going to be extremely detrimental. And so that is, I think, why people tend to think this way is they want to not put on this other person and then be let down again in the future because it didn't work out. And now I'm feeling despair like I did last time. And so it could be part of that, but it also could be that this idea that I need to, you know, reach this level of prosperity in my life before I deserve love is part of the issue too. And I just wonder, you know, things like this hierarchy, the idea of the id, the ego, these things, they're still out there in the ether, even though some people still, you know, study Freud and psychodynamics and practice psychodynamics.
Yeah.
It seems to have really gone by the wayside in our field of psychology in general. Um, but these ideas persist where the rest of society thinks, hey, this is how these things work. I have only a superficial knowledge of what it really means in general, but I'm going to take that into account and then make up my own kind of explanation based on the minor understanding I have of these phenomenon, and then say, hey, you know what? I don't deserve this because that's what I've learned and that's what society has told me, sort of thing.
Do you think that idea of like working on yourself comes from Maslow's hierarchy, like our use of it today? Probably not. I'm sure there's some counseling stuff that I'm
Well,
unfamiliar with.
so with like counseling psychology, and cognitive behavior therapy and these like some of these other things, I took the classes just to learn what they were. And some of the stuff, I'll be honest, but I'll be careful the way I say it. It's, I don't want to say fluff, but it's not the part that actually changes or controls or
Mhm.
alters behavior in a way that's what the person's really looking for. But there are parts of those therapies that really do teach you new skills, teach you how to handle things, walk you through these processes and make them so they are effective. Because a lot of the time, you know, cognitive behavior therapy is effective. Um, it's a little bit of a, you know, here's your diagnosis. This is the type of therapy we use. We just plug it in there. Some small alterations to fit you personally, but here's your homework, go on, do this journaling, do these things, and it'll help you kind of shape your behavior so you're thinking more positively about things and not dwelling on, this traumatic event or whatever it is that you think is causing this. Because that's the other thing is everybody tends to think if it was trauma, that's why I'm so messed up. And oftentimes it's just verbal behavior that's been shaped in ways that is ineffective for your happiness. Um, so I think the idea of going to therapy and doing the work, which again often is helpful, is kind of where that idea of working on oneself kind of came from. But I do think things like the hierarchy and a lot of these other philosophies that either are still around or have gone by the wayside add to it and alter it in a way that the general public thinks, hey, I can just work on myself here. All I have to do is get a better job and uh, be happier with myself, work out a little bit so I don't look like a way in the mirror that I'm not happy with, you know what I mean? And then I'll be ready to go and I'll love myself so then I can love other people and they can love me too. And I think that's kind of, unless you go into therapy and have someone to help you through these issues, that's kind of where that comes from in general. So both.
Yeah, because I mean, I think self-actualization is a good goal. I still stand by it. I feel like it's a little unattainable. Okay, it's not unattainable. I just feel like in America, it's unattainable.
I don't I think it should be unattainable. I think it would be a
Yeah,
sad day, but I guess it would not be a sad day because you've reached self-actualization, so you wouldn't think it was sad. But like imagine if science and knowledge was finite. We've discovered every last bit of information in the world. We know how
yeah.
everything works. Studying things, figuring them out. Science it's a puzzle. I remember I was taking a theoretical behavior class with one of the bigger names in our field when I was in school. Kind of like they did an online course that you could sign up for from another different university, and only four of us signed up for it. I couldn't believe that it wasn't a fairly large class, but maybe that's just because I'm a weird nerd. But I may have mentioned this before, but it was extremely entertaining. I had a friend in there and then two people we didn't know. And this gentleman's like, all right, so I want you to tell me, why are you here? What do you hope to get from this? And everybody's like, oh, I want to know our science better. I want to be a better practitioner because I understand these things all this. And I'm like, I want to have fun. This is just like interesting, cool stuff. Like the whole point is to nerd out. Not that it'll necessarily lead to anything, but if it does, cool. And if not, it's just entertaining. He's like, exactly. And like, oh, you should see the looks on the other people, their faces.
Got him.
But I asked him in that class, I'm like, it's existential crisis, mini existential crisis. Like, what is the point of all of this? You know what I mean? Like, what is the point of scientific exploration? Sure, sometimes it helps us, but humanity isn't the answer. We're not that important when you look at like the universe as a whole. We barely exist here. So what is the purpose of this? And he looked at me like, what do you mean purpose? You know what I mean? And so the idea that you're trying to reach some plateau and you never keep striving forward, if you reach this level of happiness where you don't feel like you need to strive anymore, that's great.
Mm.
But I would say you're missing out on a good chunk of what life is all about to not continue to strive forward, to learn more, and to do more. Sounds kind of like a sad, boring existence to reach this plateau and then be like, nah, I'm done here. I'm good. I mean, it would reduce
Yeah,
anxiety, but it would also be very boring. Like, what would you do? What would you think about? I
yeah.
don't
If you
know.
hit your peak, like what would be the next, like, because I mean that comes into what you guys talked about in the one episode with Chad, like the hustle, or where
Yeah.
someone's always on
Mhm.
the grind. Like if you don't have anything yet to work towards the next day, like are you just gonna copy and paste what you just did yesterday? Like, and what's
I
the
think the point is and again, this is taking the classist approach, but you've made all the money you need. All your needs are met. There's nothing else to do. You have your family, you have your loved ones. There's nothing else to build on there. You can just kind of stagnate. You know, sit around, just enjoy the world around you. And we always talk about trying to see the good and enjoy what, like the little things in life, because those are the things that will probably make you happy. Money itself will never make you happy, but it can afford you cooler reinforcers, cooler toys. But otherwise, money itself isn't going to make you happy. Finding joy in the little things will. But I think I'd be extremely bored if all I'm doing is going around trying to find joy in these little things and not
Mhm.
actually finding a way to push myself and go forward, which probably sounds really strange for me too, because as a teenager, I think if I could have just found a way to have what I needed and not have to do anything, that would have been my ideal, you know? And so may say more about who I've become as a scientist, as a person, more than actually me representing all of society or all the world.
Sure.
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 What was that movie where someone, oh no, it was, I think it was completely off topic, but it was Frasier when the housekeeper had forgotten to renew her green card or whatever, and she had to pretend to be American when they were going over the Canadian border. But the only thing she could say
Uh,
without a British accent was "sure." So every time they asked her something, "Sure, sure."
I haven't watched Frasier in quite a long time.
No, that was just a flashback of like, where do I remember that from? It's been probably 20 years since I've watched an episode, but
Yeah.
back when I had 5 channels late at night, Nick at Night, that was one of the shows. So that's what I watched.
This new generation, they don't know, man.
Back when
Full
I
circle.
didn't check my email for years at a time because it took an hour each time I tried to sign in at
No, not worth it.
no.
If they
Well,
really need me,
here's a
they'll
throwback.
page me.
I had an AOL account that I think is still the one linked to my computer, and sometimes I'll just hop on that. There's nothing relevant going to the AOL, as you would imagine. It's an AOL, but I actually think my inbox has reached max capacity. So if there's something linked to that email that I'm like, oh, I have to get it, I have to go in and delete like 100 emails to like free up space so I can get thrown in there.
I do not know if mine is still active. I haven't checked it in so many years, but last time I checked, it was just at one point they cleared the whole thing because it had gotten too ridiculous. We had like it was $4 a month dial up internet that my parents just had until after I moved out because it was
I
so
think it's
cheap.
done. I think it's finally gone, right?
Yeah, but
What is?
You can't AOL, like you can't log on your screen name anymore.
I think you can send them the email. I'm not sure about the rest, unless they got rid
Okay.
of that too. But AIM is no longer there. We're no longer messaging random people online back
Those are
when
good days. Those are good days, man.
I
What
had
was it?
no idea what to say to strangers online.
No, it wasn't.
I remember one time this friend of mine was getting picked on, and she was a little girl, and he was thought he was a real badass, and I started pulling out my serial killer knowledge on him, and like I had to the point where I thought the police were going to show up at my house. Like,
Probably should have.
What is that? Or what is this messaging service?
AIM.
yes, it's AOL Instant Messenger, and like back in the early 2000s, when like basically that was the only function where you could actually communicate with one another. Like pre and then early MySpace time, like
Hit me
just
up on AIM.
Before
yeah,
Tom?
yeah. Before we all had phones to communicate and text each other, like
Yeah.
you wanted to talk to the cute girl at school, but you didn't want to call her house and be on the actual phone. Just get on AIM and
Figure
hope
out her
that
screen name.
yeah, hope the screen name turns up. Like what was it really grayed out when they weren't online, and then like you hope it darkened or
Oh
something like
yeah.
that.
The away message.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, before your time, Dr. Miyaga. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, clearly.
So, anything else? Any other thoughts on this?
I don't
Any
think
other
we had
ideas?
time to, so I'm gonna say no.
Everybody out there, just try to be safe, be happy, uh, enjoy the little things, look towards the little things,
Go against
because
the grain.
yeah, you never know when you're gonna reach that plateau and hit self-actualization, and maybe
Mm. Yep.
meditate so hard you get stuck in nirvana, and now you don't even know what's going on around you at all anymore. So be careful
Yeah.
out there, even on the positive things.
Yep. Can't
Yeah.
be too careful.
You can't be too enlightened.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.